Welcome, Van.
Hey, thanks, Paul.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm glad we're getting to talk about this because just to demystify things a little bit, Van and I have known each other for a while, and so I've seen some of this process unfold. But as is often the truth with people who are close to you, you don't really understand exactly what's going on. So I'm excited to hear what has been actually the ins and outs of getting this movie made. My first question: this movie is called All Roads to Perla, right?
Yeah,
Which is a name change. It used to be
yep,
called Sleeping in Plastic, as I
that's
recall.
correct. Uh-huh.
What caused the name change?
Well, the distributor
Okay.
had so once we got North, we have a sales agent, and we could talk about all this too. It's kind of like weird.
Mm-hmm.
So we sold got the rights for North America to Gravitas Ventures, and but Sleeping in Plastic will also be sold to international territories. They just wanted a name change that's due to a couple different reasons. One, at first, a lot of people were asking about the title and things like that, but I think they felt like a new title would have helped.
Mm.
So that's something in itself. It's up to each creator. But I've been living with this thing for like 10 years, so
Mm-hmm.
I was ready for a change. I didn't care, and I had backup titles. I love to start things with titles, so
Mm-hmm.
it felt kind of fresh. I was like, and then when you finally kind of see the movie, this title kind of made more sense.
Oh, cool.
For it. So after the final edit and things, so
Yeah, I mean, I think that that begs a question, maybe philosophically, that we
yeah.
talk a lot about with writers when you're getting into the world of being published or distributed, of when to know how or if you should stick up for yourself, like what lines to draw in the sand. So clearly this was one where you didn't necessarily care that much about what the movie was called at this point. Have there been other things that you had to say, like, no, I really feel like this needs to be the way it is?
Yeah, through this whole process, even directing or like producing, or I wore a lot of hats on this one, but you got to pick and choose your battles. I think the one thing that I came that helped me was when I started this journey. It was like I had to learn how to let things go. If you didn't, I would still probably be stuck with my script and sitting in a corner crying with my script. So I think I learned how to sort of let things go. Other people, especially with filmmaking, writing is so by yourself that when you start to make a film, it's like sports or things. You want to play with other people who are much better than you. So I put that in my head. If I could play with other people, and use their years of wisdoms and the things that I didn't know in the process, um, I put faith in that. So
Mm-hmm.
once I learned to kind of let go, I think it felt better for me. I could sleep at night, make
Mm.
peace with these changes. So
Do you have any strategies for like how to go through the actual process of letting go of something? The reason I ask that is that I know that if somebody says something jarring in like an email or whatever, or unexpected, I've learned that I need to take, it's as simple as taking time with it. Usually sleeping on it allows me to
mm-hmm.
then approach it from a more like caring and giving perspective and not so much a reactive one. I'm sure that there have been a lot of voices throughout this process. Have you come up with any sort of go-to?
Yeah, that's a great question, because at first you don't want to be like a robot. We're human. We have these emotions, especially when it comes to your work, and you want
Mm-hmm.
to get it right. But if you know that the number one thing is story, if you put that in your head, and all the decisions that you make is based on story, I think you will get a better place, especially with filmmaking. It's so collaborative that everything is happening. But for me to learn how to let go, I think I had to sort of like you did. I would be emotional, but I'll step back, and then I just learned how to like take the criticism or take the. You always have to problem solve. I reframed it and go, oh, let me solve this problem now. It's a new problem to solve. If it's a name change or it's a character change or it's a plot change, I didn't react to that. Just kind of go, oh, that's a new challenge. Let me try to do it this way and make it better and see where I'm at the end. So I took that route because I mean, at first I would sit and stew and go, oh, you bastards. But I kind of learned how to kind of let go, because it's a long freaking road to hold that. I want to spend my energy in creating versus like defending.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. You mentioned early on that this has been a 10-year process. Do you remember exactly when this started, in the sense of when, not like the day, but like what jogged the idea in you?
Absolutely. I say 10 years because it was like the first time I wrote the page, the first, pen to paper. 10 years. I didn't get the script kind of ready until like 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start pushing it until like five years ago.
And pushing it meant
feeling like it was good enough, good enough to shoot, because I was going to shoot this film no matter what. So once I decided I had the script and I was going to direct it, like all the things you read and all the books you read, and it goes, like, hey, pick a date. Once the train starts going, then it's funny how people react. But you're like, hey, how am I going to get financing? Hey, how am I going to get actors? Hey, who's going to do this? How do you put this all together? I think that's what makes you go like, hey, set a date. You get it going. This train is moving. It's really funny how that happens. Like when you say a specific number, I think that's what Writer's Block does really well, is setting that goal, setting those things. If you get used to that, you get used to accomplish little things, and all those little things become better. So once I said it, hey, I'm going to shoot this. I didn't say I was going to shoot this in the fall. I just specifically said I was going to shoot this in like November 13th.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had that number in my head, just said to everyone, I went to Texas to location scout. This was 5 years ago. And then I was talking to a composer who I worked with a lot, and he was like, hey, have you talked to Red Productions and Red Sanders? I said, no, I haven't yet. And they're a production company based in Fort Worth, Texas, and had an office in Santa Monica. They eventually got a hold of my script, and then I met with them, and we hit it off. Plus one, they were Texan, and I love people from Texas. The movie's based in Texas. And then Derek, one of the producers, like, let us help you make this and make it the vision you wanted. And that's all you wanted to hear from a teammate, like, how do we help you make this? And that was the launching pad. I didn't get that script there until like four years ago, like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. For Red Productions to get it. So the 2 years, it didn't go anywhere. So once Red Productions came, we were able to get it into Lindsey Graham, who's our casting director. And Lindsey Graham is with Betty May Casting, and she casted like A Star Is Born, Suicide Squad, Black Swan. So for her to even like look at the script and read it and actually come aboard for our little film, that took it from not like another little thing to, okay, now I'm meeting with actors, professional actors. Before that, I only did short films. Mm-hmm. And they were just like friends and family, just like the same thing. So now you're building attachments and getting cast and doing this. And while that's happening, you're working on financing. So
yeah. So tell me a little bit, because I don't understand. I never understand the production path. In that, how did you get it to Red Productions, as if you were explaining it to a fourth grader?
Okay. So I met Curtis Heath, who's my composer, who's our composer. He's done a lot of the short films. He's from Fort Worth, and I used to live in Fort Worth, Texas, and I wanted to shoot there. And he was like, have you talked, he mentioned Red Sanders. So because he's done work with them, mm-hmm. I shoot an email to them, And I shot emails everyone. No one wants to read your script. No one wants to do this. No one, you know, you can't even get my brother or you can't get anyone to read anything, you know, especially here. So, but because of that relationship with Curtis and Red, they've done stuff before, and Curtis is a great composer. He's done work with like a lot of other stuff, like had songs in like Ain't Them Body Saints, a couple of Sundance Other Darlings and things like that. So Red and Derek read the script, and that's when he came back and said, hey, let's do this. So that was one yes out of like 100 no's, you know? So that one yes goes to, okay, we're gonna let's try to get a casting director on board, and then Red Sanders, who's head of Red Productions, always wanted to work with Lindsay Graham, but never had a project that was like sort of like near, like right around her out, you know, like her sort of genre. So he shipped the script over there. Then like in 2 weeks, she said, oh yeah, I'll come on board. So it just went from this to this. And then we had, you know, leverage, you know, this whole game is about leverage. It's like no one, until you start making like sort of plays or things to add to your resume, you know, no one's gonna like call. But this journey, like I said, started 9-10 years ago. So it wasn't like that 1,000 no's prior to. So that's when you're like, hey, screw it. I'm just gonna shoot it on my iPhone, shoot it, whatever. So it just went more than you could imagine. I was grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's interesting to me about that is always knowing or learning how those connections lead to something actually happening, right? So you just mentioned, you know, it was me sending it to this person and then finding out that he was interested. It's not, there's no defined pipeline, right?
No, I think everyone has its own path, and again, it also comes down to the script, because even Derek and Red prior to, because you're a first-time feature director, the thing I kept hearing is, this has to be executed properly. You know, like, could it be done? You don't have any, you know, experience doing this. The only way you could do it is just doing it. And to get actors of note and quality to work for peanuts and scale, it's not because they know you and they're like your brother or your friend from high school that wants to help. It's you have to attract it. So the only thing that really that my leverage was the script. And mind you, I had production companies that hated the script. Some thought were like, you're going to see it with all the different reviews. Subplots go nowhere. This doesn't happen. What's this movie about? You know? But you just kind of stick to your guns. The exact same thing that you said, hey, when do you have to make choices? The choices is, I'm sticking to these characters, even though people say there's too many. Everyone has an opinion, you know, but if I could go back, I have, you know, you got to kind of be confident in a certain way to say, like, my opinion matters too, but you got to pick and choose your battles. That's the trick you start to learn, you know.
What kept you going through all this?
That's a great question. Being delusional, stupid. You know, if you look back and you go, being naive, you know, I think that's a great part of it, because you don't really realize the endurance. It's like, hey, I'm going to go on for a hike, but you didn't really realize it's a 26-mile hike, and you only, you know, were you really prepared for it? It becomes instinctive and survival, and becomes a challenge. And it's, you know, it's something that you thought you wanted to do. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to become a filmmaker or a writer, or pop out of the womb with a 8mm camera or something like that. It was 10 years ago. I woke up and told my wife, hey, I think I'm going to make a film. And then she was like, good God, man. It's like I started as a photographer. Why don't you open up a restaurant, do everything that's like percentage wise, that's unattainable, or, you know, things are going to collapse. But but it's part of, I enjoy it. I think it's a challenge, you know. I think that's what makes it fun.
Mm-hmm.
And being stupid, you know, so that's the key.
But yeah, I mean, I think it is a lot like, you know, I think sometimes about being in this building, this writer's block place, which it's now been 7 years since I started the thing that became this, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you had said at the beginning that I needed to have a building with branded mugs and plants and all of the other stuff that's around, there's almost no way I would have started it. It required, like you're saying, that naivete of like, I don't know, let's just get some people together and put them at some tables and then see what happens. And I think I actually think a lot about this, that one of the issues with social media and how people present themselves is that a lot of times what you see is the finished product. You don't see all of the struggles because people want to present the best sides of themselves to the world. And so it's difficult sometimes for us to remember that, like,
It's,
everything started half-assed.
exactly.
So I wonder, like, I'm always like, I always want to, as best we can, kind of demystify things for people. So I wonder, like, what would you tell someone who is intimidated? Like, what do you say to someone who's like, I don't know, I don't live in Los Angeles, I don't know anybody who
Yeah.
is a producer. Like, how do I get a movie made? How do I take the first step?
That's a good question, because I think you have to find something that you want to push and work towards each day. And that's what I wanted. My thing is I wanted to work towards getting the story out. Once I was happy with that, um, it kicks in overdrive. Even if you don't know how to do it, you finished a product and you want to get it done. And I think also during this time, I've written 3 other scripts. And I remember talking to my brother. He was like, "Is this? Don't hold it so precious. Do you have any more ideas? If this is your own idea, then hold on to it. But if you have more, just let it go." Then that made sense to me. It made, like, nothing has to be perfect. I just need to get this one out so I can make the next one. That's how I thought in my brain. So this didn't have to be perfect. It just had to be there. And I think if I had to tell someone how to keep going, is just keep getting better at that story. That story becomes itself. That it needs to get out there. So you need to kind of give birth to it and let it roam around, and then find something else to obsess about for the next, like, 2 or 3 years. You know, I think you kind of get it done, you know, the next one, because there's just so many in my head. There's just so many different ideas I want to kind of tackle thematically, and again, just have that. I quit in so many different things in my life, and, like, I was bad at this, I was okay in this. I just didn't want to quit in this, you know. That's the only thing. I knew things are going to be tough, but I like that desperation, because I always thought, like, if I become desperate, I'll get over my fears. I just made myself become desperate,
Mm-hmm.
so I could get over, like, the fear of rejection. And you talk about demystifying the process. We were rejected 33 times before our world premiere at the Austin Film Festival. We were close to a lot of different festivals. After total rejection is over 80 plus film festivals. We still got distribution. It's a matter about timing, you know. That's a whole different game we could talk about, like film programming. It doesn't matter about the quality of the film, it's just the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the whole thing I had to learn. Like, you know, the percentages are there. I was really happy about how it turned out. And I remember talking to everyone involved. I just didn't want everyone to feel like it was I didn't want to mess up their IMDb credit and go, "Oh my God, that movie, I was part of that movie. That was a stinker." You know, I just want to make sure that people were at least proud of it, or you know, felt good. Even, you know, if a couple eyeballs lay on it, at least the people who trusted it and had faith in it were at least proud of it. That was my goal.
Yeah, you talked earlier about like giving yourself a hard deadline of like the train's leaving the station on this day at this time. And I think making commitments to other people is similar, right? So
Yeah,
anytime you say, we're doing this together and I'm not going to let you down, that can be a pretty strong motivator, of course.
absolutely. Like, because, use whatever tool you have to kind of like get you to do things like, like sometimes I would picture myself if I was 10 years from now and regretful, and I came back in time to this present, what would I do? I would just trick myself to, when I felt like giving up or when I felt like quitting, I would kind of like, just find ways to keep me going. I think it's like working out in a gym. It's like one more rep or one more push up. I think for me, I was training for this, for doing things I didn't want to do. I remember like trying to do things I didn't want to do so I could practice doing things I didn't want to do. Like, I don't want to take out the trash right now, so I'll go take it out. So I got used to doing things I didn't want to do. So it's like, oh, I don't want to make this phone call, or I didn't want to do this, but then I'll just do it. So then after I did it, I never regretted it. So I got used to doing things I didn't want to do. So I think if you get in these habits to trick your brain, so when you want to give up, and I'm like, hey, don't give up. I used to I hiked Griffith Park over 200 times going, I'm waiting for that email. I'm waiting for that call. I'm waiting for this actor. And I got so tired of waiting. I was like, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to keep writing. I will keep writing. I'll have this. And I'll write 4 more. I'll write 5 more. And then when things hit, I'll have 4 scripts, 2 pilots, whatever it is. I'm ready to go. That's how I wasn't going to bank on this one egg. I just wanted to start this egg and let it, or plant the seed, which is now all roads to Perla. So that's what made me kind of keep going, because I was like, I'm running out of time, it's in terms of like always waiting for things, and I didn't want to do that. I think I started to learn I was a control freak.
Yeah,
it's like I got to control everything. I want to go do this, but so yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Well, I think you mentioned tricking your brain, right? So I think it's important in any endeavor that is challenging to figure out, and this becomes easier as we age, I think, what idiosyncrasies we have and how can you use them to positive ends, right? So if you're prone to shame, if shame's a big motivator, how can you shame yourself in a good way, right, into accomplishing something positive that then leads to, in the long term, some positive results, right? So if you're seeking approval from people, that may not be great, but maybe you're able to engineer a way around that where you're like, okay, well, I have this problem where I'm always seeking people's approval. How can I use that to get them to read my script, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think it's kind of counterintuitive, because you could make the case of just like, well, get rid of that weird way your brain behaves, but that's probably impossible. We're probably all going to be motivated by deep-seated like schemas and value systems, and so then it's a matter of just like using those to our advantage.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think, figure out your strengths, your weaknesses, and then I think you just gotta like that process and you gotta be sadistic and like the pain of not knowing what's gonna happen, like being comfortable, being uncomfortable. It's like nothing's guaranteed, like even this or that, or who's gonna be be your champion. I think you initially have to champion yourself, and you got to get yourself in a honest conversation, which I had with myself. It started when I was starting as a photographer. I was like, my photographs have to look as good or better than what it does in the magazines. Until I get it there, I'm not going to work for the magazines. That was what my logic was. Then I had to get honest assessment with that and not be afraid to go, hey, that light sucks, or, you know, your composition is off or whatever. So you get it into, you go, it looks like the magazines. Then you have confidence. You build these little grains of confidence. You start to do this. And even if you get rejected for a lot of different times, that's when that delusion helps. When you don't you forget that you were rejected. I think I forget how many times. Actually, that's false. I count. I have a spreadsheet of all my festival rejections and all different things. So just kind of makes me kind of, maybe because I'm trying to get organized, but it helps. You go, okay, wow, I was like, this list keeps getting longer and longer and longer. When do you get a break? But I always love that quote by Denzel Washington when he says, if you stick around the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. So I was like, let me just stay and not give up, and I'll hopefully get a haircut until, you know. So, yeah.
So I want to, I'm going to transition into some questions from our audience, but before we
Sure.
do that, I'm going to hit you with 3 quick hitters just to shake off
All right.
those serious questions. Yeah. So the first one is Delta or United?
Oh, Delta. I just had a good
why?
experience with Delta. My last flight with Delta was nice. I was like, oh wow, this is a new plane, and everyone was cordial, and it felt fresh. And I was like, oh, I got to fly Delta more often.
Okay. Ridley Scott or Boo Radley?
Ridley Scott.
Okay, because of the movie part.
Yes, because I just was watching a little bit of Aliens, and that popped into my
nice
head. Yeah.
All right, and as a Texan, this is an important question: A1 steak sauce or no A1 steak sauce?
Oh man, you asked. I love A1 steak sauce, so I'll put it on anything.
Okay. When I was a kid, we had our own cows that we would raise a cow to have beef for the table, right? So that we had mama cow, and we would send it off to the pasture, and it would come back magically pregnant. And then after a year and a half, we would take it off to the butcher. And because this is like the ultimate farm to table, and it was very organic food, even though when that wasn't a thing. So the steak was really good, but my father, when he would grill steaks, he would always cook them to like well done. I didn't know that there was another other option, and so we always wanted to like put something on because they were so dry and so tough. But he forbade us from putting any sauce on a steak because he's like, that's such good meat, which he was right about. But he had also like cooked it to death, so therefore we needed something just to get moisture in our mouths. So anyway,
did you put A1 on?
Well, it wasn't allowed. We just had to like choke down this beef jerky that he had created. All right, funny. Let's get to back to some writing questions. Kate wonders this: are you conscious of budget as you make writing choices, or does that come later in the process?
I was not conscious of the budget, you know, but I also know that I wasn't writing like a huge thing. It was an intimate story, but it was tricky. We had 22 locations, so it wasn't like your independent film that had one location with 2 actors talking. It became a little bit more, but it's good to have a good line producer to kind of knock things out of the budget. But I'm not conscious with the budget when I'm writing.
What is, like, if you had to give us the elevator pitch for All Roads to Perla, what is it?
Oh, it's about a high school wrestler who gets entangled with this drifter and her like crazy lover, but really shit hits the fan when he becomes her escort driver. So it's a comedy. No, it's a crime thriller about love and pain and the consequences of your actions.
Okay. Amanda wonders this: do you write all your script with you making it in mind, or are you writing to sell it?
I write it with me in mind, directing it. So I would put camera movements. I would do different things. So I don't really follow a lot of the sort of rules of people, you know, you're not supposed to do this or do that. I like to write textually, so viscerally, so you could see the scene and feel it, because I think that might have helped when I was a photographer, because I love setting the world up, the atmospheric world up. So, yeah.
Do you think you'll always write and direct?
When you first start out, you have that, but now I'm getting a lot of different scripts sent over, and there are a lot of great scripts out there. You know, not everyone could be Paul Thomas Anderson and write and direct all the time, but there's really great scripts that if it connects with me personally, I would love, you know, there's a couple floating right now that are consideration that, yeah, I would definitely direct other, you know, writers' work. But just it has to kind of connect, yeah. So I don't have to always write my own thing, because it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah. Well, you know, speaking of working on your own stuff, one thing that I think is important to touch on is, what have you been doing to support yourself in this time?
Yeah,
because
so,
it's like I think one of the things we who grew up in small places, right? We always are like, well, I don't know, they just direct movies. That's what they do. But you forget that, like, if there's this 10-year period at the beginning, especially, where you're trying to get it made.
Yeah, prior to all that, like like 3, 4, 5 years ago, I used to work at this place called Brave New Films, where I was doing like short documentaries on social justice issues. I was teaching at UCLA Extension classes and New York Film Academy on photography and DSLR video, picking odd jobs in terms of like editing, lots of other like work in terms of like anything along the lines of where I could edit, because I love editing as well. You're just trying to, the reason why I started doing so much, because you can't, you know, I had to learn how to do all that, because I didn't want to wait for or work, you know. I taught myself how to edit, I taught myself how to do all these other things. So how to make a living that's what I did, just kind of like freelance, and then started well, recently, before the pandemic and stuff, a commercial production company to do pieces and things like that. So just living lean. You got to live lean, you know. Your ramens, your you know, not the most healthiest things. You can't be going to Gelson's and things like that, and you know, and that's the trade-off, you know. It's a brutal 10-15 years of you know, and having a significant other who appreciates that, because you're putting your own sort of debauchery and ego into a team. So if you don't have a partner who supports that, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So I'm grateful for that. So I would try to pick up anything I can, you know. And we finally moved. We lived in a rent control place in LA for 9 years, you know, and basically keep your expenses down. And every time I wanted to spend something, I would think, oh, I could use this for, you know, a script idea or making a short or some things like that. So like, we didn't have cable for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. We had rabbit ears until like last year, you know, so you're standing with a rabbit ear around and trying to get the weather, things like that. Then you realize, oh, you could check your phone for that. So yeah.
Amanda wonders if you find yourself drawn to the same type of material, like genre/theme each time.
For me, yeah. I love things about love and pain. If it falls under that, which encompasses a lot of things. So I love the dark side of human behavior. I love, obviously, super flawed characters. I love I love atmosphere. I love the space when, when you're about to fall asleep and you could hear someone in the other room, and do you think it's a dream or is it real? Then your knee jerks and you were wide awake. I love that feeling. So anything that encompasses that edge, the edge of a dream, a nightmare, and reality, those are things that I'm drawn to. I'm not going to be pretty good with comedy, even though, I like dark stuff. But I'm not like super goth or anything. I just like that, I'm drawn to the darker things in life.
What's your second favorite movie?
Princess Bride.
Yes. Great answer. That's my first favorite movie.
So. Oh, really?
Yeah.
It oscillates. So that's why. Wow.
Let's take one more question from our audience. Megan wonders if you started out writing your own script, or did you produce other stuff first before this even got going?
I started writing. I always wrote my own thing. You know? Yeah. So when I was writing All Roads to Perla, when I would get stuck, I would write short films. So because one character, I didn't know what was happening. I'll take an insignificant character and make a whole story, 9 to 10 page script about what they did, just to have fun.
Okay, Van.
Yeah.
We've reached the end, but I want to know this. When this movie is out in the world, how are people going to get to watch it?
Awesome. Yeah. It'll be out on demand, where it's Redbox, Amazon Prime, whatever, any, internet streaming thing that you could get, iTunes. It'll be on cable streaming, where it's like, actually, if you go to allroadstoperla.com, it tells you where it's going to be. You can watch it on September 25th, but they're also releasing it theatrically at certain cities, which is yet to be announced because of the current situation.
Yeah. It's weird times for making plans.
Yeah. So, and that was in itself. So there were certain cities, obviously it was going to be like LA and New York, but that this all could be scrapped and things like that. So everyone has to pivot and just be grateful for what any opportunity and things of that nature. So yeah, September 25th, allroadstoperla.com. You could check it out there, and it has all different places where you could get it, but you could pre-order it right now on iTunes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Scott has posted a couple of links to those websites and to Van's Twitter handle. He's also at Run Van Run on Instagram, which I think is probably the best place to pay attention to all things movie related. Van, can't wait to see it. Thanks for doing this.
Man. Hey, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Paul.
See you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.